Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Franco from Frank Analysis, and I just wanted to give a quick book review on a book I read recently called Thought as a System. This is a book by David Bohm, and David Bohm is pretty much a physicist, he's a philosopher, he's a psychologist, and he was also an emeritus professor of theoretical physics at Birkbeck College, University of London. And he contributed a lot of ideas to quantum theory, neuropsychology, and the philosophy of mind. And he passed away in 1992, and he had a lot of seminars where he shared a lot of his ideas, a lot of his theories, and this book is pretty much a seminar that he had. It's a Q&A about how thoughts are pretty much reflexes. Thoughts are reflexes that take control over most people and how they feel and how they run their lives. In order to not let these reflexes control us, because our emotions control us, they control how we feel, and then it becomes a feedback. You start feeling bad, and then you start thinking other negative things. In order to prevent these thoughts from controlling us, we have to be aware of what thoughts are. And thoughts are pretty much, like I mentioned earlier, they're reflexes. We have to become the observer, and we pretty much are all capable of that because all of us are the observer. We just haven't realized that yet. Um, People, what else is I going to say here? So, yeah, thinking is what makes us feel some kind of way emotionally. And sometimes we become attached to these emotions, and then we allow these emotions to control us. I would recommend this book most to people who are scientifically minded, people who are analytical, people who are rational thinking. If you're religious but open minded, you'll probably find this book interesting as well. But it's you're definitely gonna find it interesting and maybe even eye opening. The book also talks about how all these thoughts that we have pretty much condition us to think that this is our identity. Like we think that the thoughts that we have and all the feedback that we get from our culture make us who we are, but really we've just been conditioned to think that way. Um, Let me read a passage here that I thought was really interesting. So this is on page 167. And the questioner asked, does the identity depend on the system you were talking about? He said, I'm saying that the system gives you the identity. Without the system, you would have no identity. The whole system of thought spread over the world is what gives you your identity, your place in the world, and so forth. If there were no system, how could you sustain that identity? The identity could only exist socially and culturally. Although we may try to identify ourselves with God or something like that, there again, it's the culture which gave you the thought allowing you to do that. That's what we have to keep in mind. There was an ancient view. I don't know what I am. What I am is unknown, but constantly revealing itself. This is another view of what you are. Let's look at it for a moment. I am unknown. If there is something which is infinite, the universe, or something beyond the universe, I am somehow grounded in that. Maybe the whole physical being and probably even matter is infinite in its subtlety, and there may be something beyond. Therefore, whatever I am, that must be the source of it. That is unknown, but it reveals itself. We don't need the notion of an identity, of an all important identity onto which we are going to hold, because that gets in the way of the need to change our reflexes. Once we identify with something, our reflexes are that way. It's very important, necessary, and we will want to preserve that identity even though it may involve ideas that are false. So, how can this apply to some of you guys? A lot of the viewers here are viewers of like independent media or whatever it is that you view. You adopt some of those ideas that you see on your computer or on your phone, and then you adopt those as part of your identity, and you can become attached to it. And sometimes you become so attached that you're not actually seeing things rationally. But if you become aware of that, if you become aware of how these thoughts are just reflexes that influence how we feel, then you start to see things more clearly. And then there's another passage here I wanted to read that's on page 216. So the questioner asks, even our sexual images as man and as a man and as a woman. And then David Bohm says, yes, it is all influenced heavily by the culture, very strongly. It's all there, and we form this image. We have the image that I do the thinking, I am the thinker, but in fact the culture has produced most of the thought. It sort of passes through me. I add a bit to it. I do this or that to it. The kind of thought we use, which is communicated, originates basically in the whole society and the culture. We have the sense of separation because our culture tells us that each individual is separate, and therefore we perceive it in that way. So it's a pretty, I think it's a really great book, and I think it'll help all of us become more aware of ourselves, and become more objective thinkers, and to see what actually is real. He also talks about how time is a perception. We only perceive it as a real thing because we evolved to perceive things sequentially, like things occur one after another. So we evolved this logic as a way to survive. And he also explains this in a scientific way too, since he is a physicist. He brings up concepts in physics to explain how time is a relative thing and how that's just something that we're perceiving. I highly recommend this book. I'm going to do other reviews like this going forward on this channel. Appreciate you guys coming on the show to watch, and take care. Stay informed.